Welcome to the fifth video in Child Trend's six-part series on building evidence for effective programs. In this video, we'll walk you through the final step of the process to build evidence for effective programs, evaluation. Then we'll meet Maya, the director of an academic tutoring program at a youth-serving nonprofit organization. We'll check in with her to see how she and her team implemented Step 5. Before we learn about Step 5, let's review the overall process. The basic idea is that you'll want to assess the needs and resources in your community, identify the need to be targeted, create a plan, and then implement your plan to deliver your program and monitor its quality. Once your program is running smoothly, you might want to take that final step of conducting an evaluation. Keep in mind that while we present the steps as a linear process, it may not work that way for you. Because this is a journey of learning about your program, it's normal to revisit an earlier step from time to time to apply something you've learned in a later step. For a more detailed introduction to the full process, check out the first video in this series. Now, let's talk about Step 5. In this step, it's time to get an objective assessment of your program. A formal program evaluation is most useful when you already have a good sense that your program is running smoothly based on your program data. If you don't currently have a systematic way to monitor the quality of your program that is based on your theory of change and logic model, you may want to take a moment to review the video on Step 4 before you continue with this video. There are many reasons why you might decide to conduct a rigorous evaluation of your program. You may want to have an objective assessment of the effects of your program that you can share with potential partners or funders. You may plan to deliver your program in multiple sites and want to have a clear understanding of what it is about your program that leads to positive changes in participants so that you can replicate it in the new sites. Unlike performance management, an evaluation is not ongoing. Usually it is done just once or once in a great while. There are two broad categories of program evaluations: implementation evaluations and outcome evaluations. Implementation evaluations ask how the program is delivered, while outcome evaluations ask what the changes are in program participants. It's generally a good idea to do both. An implementation evaluation can help you figure out if your program is being delivered the way you intended. It can also help you identify core pieces of your program. When combined with an outcome evaluation, an implementation evaluation will help you better understand how your core pieces contribute to your outcomes. If you find that your program is not working as expected, the implementation evaluation will give you an idea of what you might need to change. An outcome evaluation can provide evidence for the effectiveness of your program and help you to determine if your program works better for some youth than others. It's a good idea to involve staff, youth, and community members formally and informally in a rigorous evaluation process. Not only can they provide valuable insights, but they can also help increase buy-in among youth and community members. You may want to set up a community advisory group that can support you throughout the process and ensure that your evaluation reflects the community that you serve. Picking an evaluation partner can take some time. You'll need to think about what you want to learn from an evaluation and consider what capacity your staff have to participate in an evaluation. For example, while an outside evaluator will be doing much of the work, your staff may be asked to help collect additional data. Organizations with a robust system of data collection already in place will probably be able to rely on a lot of data that is already collected. Now, let's check in on Maya as she works to evaluate the effectiveness of her tutoring program, especially with respect to better meeting the needs of African American and Hispanic students.
My name is Maya, and I'm the director of a program that prepares middle school youth for success in high school by providing them with the same academic tutor for 2 years. We've been running the program for 7 years, serving about 100 youth each year across 2 schools. It's a great program, and I have so much respect for our students and tutors. 2 years ago, after I attended a workshop on program evaluation, we began a journey to improve our program. We started with engaging community members to reassess the needs and resources in our community. We learned that while test scores had improved at the schools we were working with, our schools had not been as successful in helping Hispanic and African American students to achieve. By talking with parents and students, we learned that our program wasn't doing enough to meet the needs of our African American and Hispanic students either. Then we worked with our staff, board members, parents, and students to make some changes to our theory of change and logic model. We spent the last year setting up a performance management system that would allow us to monitor our program quality and track outcomes over time. Basically, we've been very busy. By the second year of the new performance management system, things were going pretty well. Other schools in town were asking about our program and even approached us about expanding to their school. It was an exciting idea, but there was no way we would be able to run the program in a third school without getting more money. I approached our board of directors about funding an expansion, but they told me that a better long-term solution would be to invest in an evaluation of the program. That way, we'd be sure that our program is working, and we would have a better chance of getting more funds down the line. To get started, I invited several staff, board members, family members, youth, and tutors to be on an advisory board for the evaluation. We also got several researchers to be on a review committee to help us select an evaluator. At the meeting, we talked through several questions. What exactly did we want to learn from this evaluation? How long should it take? Would we want to follow up with youth after they left the program? Would the 200 youth that we serve each year be enough for the study, or would we need to increase the number of youth in our program? Would we be okay with randomly assigning some kids to participate in the program, while others would be in a control group that wouldn't get to participate? There was a lot of discussion, but one thing we all agreed on was the importance of finding an evaluator that would be comfortable working closely with our staff, tutors, youth, and the community advisory board members. I took the information from the meeting and wrote a request for proposals, or RFP, which basically described what we wanted from an evaluator. It was difficult to know what exactly to put in the RFP, but I worked closely with the researchers who had agreed to be on our review committee. Next, I reached out to local evaluation organizations and colleagues at other organizations to help me distribute the RFP. We got the group back together to review the proposals and eventually selected an evaluator. Over the next year, the evaluator and I worked together with the advisory board and the research review committee to carry out our evaluation. We made sure to focus on the impacts of the program on participants and on how the program was being delivered. I knew that both would be critical if we were going to expand to other schools. While the evaluation was a lot of work, the evaluator pointed out that since we had already been collecting a lot of data on our outcomes, including putting in a lot of time and effort a few years back to getting a data sharing agreement with the school district, we had saved ourselves some time and money. There were a few bumps along the way, but our evaluator was great at taking the time to explain things and engaging with our advisory board to find solutions. For example, in the beginning, fewer than half of the students brought back their signed consent forms, even though we had included them with the program enrollment forms. We consulted our advisory board, and the students told us the gift cards we were offering for a movie theater in town were not very motivating. They said most students would prefer to get a gift card they could use at any store. Once we made that change, almost 80% of the students brought back their forms. When we finally met with the evaluator and our advisory group to discuss the findings, we were excited to see that the test scores were improving for white, African American, and Latino students. Unfortunately, while the gap between African American and Hispanic students and their white peers had almost been cut in half at one school, it hadn't budged at the other school. When we reviewed the findings from the implementation evaluation, we noticed that the African American and Hispanic students had much lower program attendance at the school where the gap hadn't changed. Luckily, we had students at the data review meeting. They explained that some students in the program at the school with attendance issues had helped to start a new leadership club for African American and Hispanic students. We were so excited to hear that our youth had helped to start a club. However, they also explained that the club meets at the same time on Wednesdays as our tutoring sessions. Several of us wondered aloud if that might explain the attendance differences and maybe even explain why the gap in test scores hadn't changed at that school. We couldn't be certain, but we all agreed that we needed to do a better job of following up with students when they missed a session. We also needed to look into changing our schedule so students could participate in the club and our program. In the end, we were happy to learn the program was effective, but we also agreed that we needed to continue exploring ways to better address the needs of African American and Latino students. I was confident that we could use the findings to improve the program. In addition, I figured that the positive impacts on test scores would make it easier to get the funding we would need to expand to new schools. It had been a long road, but I was proud of the work that we had done. Even though the evaluation results were not completely positive, I felt more confident that our program was making a difference.
Let's look back at what Maya has accomplished so far on her journey to meet the needs of students in her community. In steps 1 and 2, working with the community, Maya and her team learned that they needed to do a better job of meeting the needs of their students, especially African American and Latino students, who they learned tended to have lower test scores than their white peers. In steps 3 and 4, they made changes to their theory of change and logic model to better support African American and Latino students. Then, they decided what data they would collect to monitor the quality of their program and track outcomes. They made sure to review the data on a regular basis to make ongoing program improvements. In step 5, they contracted with an evaluator to conduct an implementation and outcomes evaluation. It was a lot of work, though it was made easier by all the work they had already done. While they learned that they still had some important room for improvement, they also learned that their hard work was paying off and that they were really making a difference in the lives of the students in their program. Now, they were ready to start expanding to new schools. Check out the resource links on the webpage for more about conducting an evaluation, including some guidance on how to select an evaluator. You might also want to check out Video 6, an interview with Isaac Castillo. In the video, he talks about his experience working at a community organization that conducted a rigorous evaluation of one of their programs.